So we're going to try and fight this situation on a couple different fronts, not only legislatively, but also how creative we can be on a local level as far as what we do to come up with solutions to the problems that's facing us. The group the committee that we're forming will probably have anywhere from 9 to 11 different individuals. It may go slightly higher, but we think that's about as high as we want to go. It hasn't been completely filled out yet, and we're going to announce probably later this week the remainder of the committee. We're still waiting on some yeses, but I have to say this: of the people that you're going to be seeing, they're going to be serving on this. No one said no. Perhaps some with a little hesitation, but no one said no, and they all agreed to come forward, and I appreciate that. We're asking them to spend a considerable amount of time in addressing exactly what the problem is, and I think it's the individuals that will be serving, their learning curve isn't going to be near as great as it would be if they hadn't served in some capacity, in some form of government, in public service, labor, business, and I think you're going to see a real diverse group that's going to come across that will serve on this committee. And time frame, I don't expect them. I'm not going to expect miracles. At the same time, though, I think that they'll be up to speed in really a short period of time. I would think that by early summer, their work would be done. I know that legislatively, as far as the city is concerned, we know that the next act that the city could take as far as how we address our pension problem would be our next tax levy, which would be at the end of this year. So we really have until the end of the calendar year. At least in the city of Springfield right now, we are faced with a budget that is looking for different sources of revenue. And hopefully, even though the timing isn't going to be good, our fiscal year ends in just a few more weeks, that at least this will give them some guidance over this next fiscal year as far as where they might look for different sources of revenue or different sources of services that may need to be cut back to be able to fund the things that they really want to do. So timing isn't perfect as far as the city of Springfield and how we're proceeding with our budget, but it is going to provide a really good tool for them in the future. So with that, let me open it up for questions.
Mayor, what's the point of this? You kind of seem to say we're going to have to raise the property tax eventually, no matter what. I mean, isn't that the solution? Why do we need a commission to tell us that?
I think that's only a part of it. It really is only a part of it. The solution is to raise property taxes. The state statute says that you should pay for this with property taxes and any other sources of revenue. And so it doesn't have to be, and it hasn't been up to this point. And also, under statute, the city of Springfield uses our property tax levy not only to pay for pensions, which majority will be the police and fire pension fund, but also IMRF and FICA, but it also is there to pay for our library system, also debt services and judgments. So what's happened is it continually gets to be squeezed out. So if in fact this should be our only source to pay for police and fire pension fund, that may be a recommendation that's come out of there. I don't want to taint any part of this committee to say what they should do and they shouldn't be doing. And I think that's one of the recommendations that's going to come out of here. So that's exactly the reason why they're here, as opposed to just waiting and sticking our head in the sand until it becomes a situation where by law it has to be raised.
Your press release says you'll be studying every source of city revenue to determine levels sufficient to support the city service. It sounds like you're looking at a possibility of a lot of different tax increases. And does this commission give you cover to do that?
Again, as I just said to Chris, I don't want to taint that committee to say that they should or shouldn't do that. There are certain taxes I'd like to get rid of in the city of Springfield that I don't think are fair, and I'm not going to taint that committee by telling them what I think those are also. But perhaps some of the revenue sources that we're having right now provide direct services back that maybe aren't near as important as what this committee might feel.
Are these folks doing this on a volunteer basis?
They haven't asked for any money yet. But what I have done is, no, they are doing this on a volunteer basis, and that was part of my sales pitch to each one of them that I've asked, not just these two, but some of the others that have agreed to, is that we're going to try, and we understand their time is valuable, and we're going to try to give them all the sources that we can of help from the city of Springfield, from our Office of Budget and Management, to accounting, to my office, and whatever kind of support that they can have, that we can give to them, we're going to. But no, they are all serving voluntarily, and I certainly appreciate that.
Tim, reference you worked on other task forces or commissions like this on similar problems. What's been your track record of success? Have you managed to actually get relief for whatever entity was asking you to study these things?
I've probably been involved as a chair of this type of group 3 or 4 times. Most recently actually involved the city of Springfield, and that was the negotiation to try to merge the Springfield Recreation Department with the Springfield Park District, and against some pretty insurmountable odds in 2 years of a lot of work, we actually came up with a framework successfully that merged the old Recreation Department into the Park District, and I think at least I would judge that that's been pretty successful for the taxpayers as well as the users of the Park District in the city. Prior to that, and probably with a little less interest from people in Springfield, I chaired a very diverse group of taxpayers and taxing bodies that had nuclear power plants within their districts, and under restructuring of the electric industry, the value for property tax purposes of those facilities was going to drop tremendously and basically wipe out school district budgets and other local taxing bodies' budgets. And we came up with a plan over a 5 to 7 year period that actually phased it down. We found creatively some additional sources of revenue, and everybody bore a little brunt of the pain of that, but ultimately we came up with a successful conclusion to that. A little more challenging in the past, I chaired a commission for Governor Edgar that looked at ways to drastically change the tax structure of the state of Illinois to reduce reliance, particularly for schools, and property taxes. And we did not come up with an all-inclusive recommendation in that regard. I think that task was a little too tall for maybe anybody. But so we have had some limited amount of success in some of these that heading into didn't look very optimistic.
How would you define success with this group?
I think success would be identifying a long-term plan, or at least a range of plans that the city council could consider. We're not going to be the final arbiters on this, but I think part of the problem, and if you just look at what's going on right now with the current budget that's got to be adopted in the next couple of weeks, everybody's kind of making quick decisions and what gets us through the next year. And this problem, as I understand it, and we'll come to learn more about it, is a much bigger, longer-term problem for the city of Springfield, and it demands that we not just make very quick decisions to try to get us through the next few months. So what we're going to try to do is lay out all of the various options that are out there, and that looks at, we'll be looking at existing revenue streams within the city. We'll be looking at cuts in services that the existing council is looking at, and we'll be looking at new or different taxes as well, and try to come up with something ultimately that makes economic sense and would give the city council the option to come up with something that makes the most sense for taxpayers and economic development in the city.